Look at a map of India, and hidden in plain sight is an expansive land covering over 60,000 square kilometers. That is a footprint larger than countries like Croatia or Costa Rica, entirely dedicated to a massive, ongoing ecological experiment. For decades, conservation has operated under a strict assumption: human development and natural preservation cannot occupy the same physical space. If one grows, the other shrinks. India's network of 18 specific ecological zones directly challenges that assumption. These zones exist to test a specific hypothesis: that economic progress and ecological survival do not have to compete for territory. The blueprint for this management system started in 1971 at the United Nations. UNESCO launched the Man and the Biosphere program, or MAP. The objective was to establish a rigid, evidence-based system for managing how human populations interact with their local environments. They created a new geographic designation called the Biosphere Reserve. This label was exclusively applied to natural and cultural landscapes that demanded active, balanced management to survive. A traditional national park puts a physical fence around nature to keep human industry out. A biosphere reserve is a departure from that model because it actively mandates that human economic and social development happen right alongside conservation. Skeptical. Integrating human industry directly into fragile ecosystems sounds like a recipe for environmental collapse. So how does this actually work on the ground without failing? This graphic maps the spatial solution. Every single biosphere reserve is engineered using a strict 3-tiered zoning system designed to filter the intensity of human impact. At the very center is the core sector. This is the strictly protected heart of the reserve, where local flora and fauna operate completely free from human interference. Wrapped entirely around that core is the buffer zone. This layer acts as a protective boundary, permitting only non-destructive human activities, like scientific research or closely monitored ecotourism. Finally, the outermost layer is the transition zone. This is where normal human settlements, agriculture, and economic development actively integrate with the local ecosystem. Rather than an abrupt wall, this 3-part architecture acts as a gradient. It safely steps down the strictness of conservation to naturally meet the heavy demands of human infrastructure. India has deployed this exact structural blueprint 18 separate times across its borders. This map plots the massive geographic spread of these 18 biosphere reserves across the Indian subcontinent. The system was first tested in 1986 with the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, spanning the lush rolling hills and agricultural land of 3 southern states. Compare that to Gujarat's Rann of Kutch. At over 12,000 square kilometers, this sprawling, barren, white salt desert is the country's largest reserve. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the Dibru-Saikhowa Reserve in Assam. Established in 1997, it is a highly concentrated floodplain ecosystem covering just 765 square kilometers. The designation isn't strictly limited to land. In Tamil Nadu, the Gulf of Mannar applies this exact same zoning structure to 10,500 square kilometers of open ocean and coastal environment. The real utility of the 3-zone architecture is its adaptability. It successfully organizes human presence, whether in a dense jungle, a massive salt flat, or a marine coastline. The remaining list pushes this adaptability to the extremes, from the freezing altitudes of the Cold Desert Reserve in the Himalayas down to the isolated island ecosystems of Great Nicobar. When you step back and look at these 18 distinct locations together, they form a single 60,000 square kilometer scientific experiment in sustainability. As a collective network, they generate continuous data showing that human economic progress does not demand the destruction of the natural world, provided the landscape is zoned intelligently. Decades of success across these specific reserves directly dismantles the old assumption that humanity and nature are locked in a territorial war. The Indian Biosphere Reserves demonstrate that the future of global conservation isn't about building higher fences to keep humans out. It is about actively engineering exactly where and how we fit into the landscape.
अगर आपको वीडियो पसंद आया तो कृपया लाइक करें, शेयर करें और चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना न भूलें।